Hi, and welcome back to Poltergeist Board Games. Today I have Chuck Siegert, who is game designer for Zero Leader, Stuka Leader, and now just finished the Kickstarter for Mustang Leader. So I'm happy to have Chuck back. Thought we'd talk a little about Mustang Leader and what lies ahead. So
Sounds great.
thank you.
My pleasure.
So you had a great, successful Mustang Leader Kickstarter. You had $65,309 with 352 backers. So you beat
Yep,
your goal by three times your goal. So
correct.
so how
Yeah,
does that?
the minimum funding was 20,000, and we kicked that butt. Was hoping for more, honestly, but the way things are going and everything else, it was better than I expected, but not as good as I hoped. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Um, so what's next on the order for Mustang Leader? Like what comes next after the Kickstarter closed? What can we expect next?
Okay, well, right now, I'm working with Vlad and Ben. Ben Rawlings. He's created all of my artwork. So I've got all the artwork that I need done, unless we come up with some stupid contest or something again. I don't know what idiot ever thought of doing something like that. But so he's got all the artwork done and everything else. And Vlad and I just downloaded my latest version. We're getting the template for the airplane cards and the pilot cards. We've got the target cards and event cards already done. They're all done, approved, proofed, ready to rock and roll. So right now we're working on pilot cards and airplane cards, and there's two slight mistakes on the airplane cards that he's got to fix, and I've sent those to him this morning already, so those should be fixed, and then we can move on. Campaign sheets are done. So the campaign sheets are done. We're moving right along. We're gonna get this puppy done ASAP. So the core is virtually done. We got to do all the player help sheets and that kind of stuff, but that's all quick stuff. So that'll all virtually be done and ready to go to the printer. But once we've got the templates done for the core, putting together the expansions will be a piece of cake because we just have to basically change the art and do that kind of stuff. So we're coming right along. We're again, just like the Kickstarter. I am faster than I expected, but not as fast as I had hoped I'd be. So it's the
Okay,
good news is I'm leaving myself plenty of room to improve. So I can always get better.
that's good. Can't we all? Um,
Yes.
so all right, so I posed, questions to uh, for people to ask.
Yes.
Only got one response, but
Yeah. Well.
it's from our friend Ted Brayton, and he
Yep.
wants to know, along with everyone else, I'm sure, why your games are so visible from prior to Kickstarter to distribution, while others in the series simply go on for months at a time with no updates and arrive much later than expected.
Yep. I think there's two reasons. There's truly number one is my retail background. I've worked in retail for 40 plus years. I sold cars and everything else. So I'm used to dealing with people and trying to get all the information out and do all that kind of stuff. So I'm used to that retail frame of mind. The second part is when I get involved in something, I want information. I always want information. I don't ever want to go 2 days without knowing something. It's like I just get that way. So that's the way I approach this is whenever something gets done, I want people to know it. I want people to say, hey, I've got the target cards done now, and I've got, this kind of thing. And it's really for two cool reasons. Number one, it makes me feel good. I'm very excited about this. I'm very excited about uh, the different artwork and everything else that Ben did and all of this kind of stuff. And I want to get it out there. But the other reason is without really trying, I send it out there and right away I get comments. and I right away, German got, makes messages about the fact that I'm using American, nowadays airplanes as target pictures. And I'm like, oh crap, okay, fine. And I go back and I have to change that. And one eagle eye caught a swastika on one of my pictures, which is 100% historically correct, but we don't want to cause any problems with like Germany or anything like that. So we're just going to clear off the tail of that airplane, and we'll all be fine. But the thing is, it's funny, but that's what happens when you get the public involved, which is what I like to do. You get these things, and then you look at them and go, oh, well, I didn't even think of that. Should I do that or shouldn't I? And make that decision. Otherwise, that never would have happened. And it's funny to think I have 44 targets in the original core game, and one target has one airplane on it where you can see the swastika, and it got caught. So I'm like, wow, I love the idea that people will catch all of these little things. So hopefully there won't be anything left hanging when I get this out. So that's the reason why I do it. It gives me great joy to send it out there. I'm very excited, and I love when people respond that it looks great and does all that kind of stuff. So that is really why I start the minute I know when my Kickstarter is going to be. And actually, looking back, I was already posting the Kickstarter's coming. We don't have a date yet, but it's coming, and all this kind of stuff, because I like the idea of building up the excitement and doing all that kind of stuff. And it's just me. And it drives me absolutely crazy to see other places that do Kickstarters, other people that do Kickstarters that are basically, hey, tomorrow we're Kickstarting. And what? Where did this game come from? And then at the end of the Kickstarter, it goes, oh, well, we funded or we didn't fund. And the whole time in between, there was no conversation. There was nothing. That frustrates the jeebies out of me. So I won't do that, and I'm one of few that I know of that really get involved in that. Vince Cooper, he's also like that. He also doesn't like things to sit. He likes to get things in his new Guadalcanal game coming out. Looks amazing, and he's been pumping that. He's been pumping that for months, and that's what you got to do. If you want people to buy your game, you got to let them know you got a game.
Yes.
So
yeah, we appreciate, as gamers, your updates, because it's always nice to be in the loop and to know, what stage things are at, and you can feel the progression of the game coming along. So it's nice, and also nice to get sneak peeks at, the artwork and stuff like that. I'm gonna have Vincent on pretty soon.
Excellent.
Talk about his upcoming game, which is, part of an amazing series. That whole Valiant Defense series is great. I just got Lanzareth Ridge, and was blown away by how good that game was, and I liked Pavlov's House. That was a lot of fun too. But yeah, so what any new player aids for Mustang leader that haven't been, or can we expect the same? Like, is there an update to the dogfighting? I think I heard you were gonna update that or something.
Yeah, I did some work on it. One of the main thing that I did is I cleaned it up so that it makes it a little bit easier for people who have not. If you've played a World War II air leader game, some of the earlier air leader games weren't, the modern ones didn't follow the dogfight sheet. But if you've played a World War II air leader game, the dogfight sheet is understandable, okay, but it's kind of confusing. So I tried to lay it out as good as I could. Then one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to work on trying to make it so that you don't always do the same maneuver. And because I find the more I play it, I'm always doing this maneuver, and these other maneuvers are really cool, but I don't want to do them because this or that or anything like that. But I found out that I really, it is very, very correct. So I'm probably not going to mess around with any of that matrix, because they each have their own, like the yo-yo and all that kind of stuff. They each have their own use. They each have their own, if you're in a position or not. And I like to bounce things off Tom Conzel, because if he doesn't yell for an hour or more, then I know that I did it right. If he yells for an hour or more, then I did something wrong. And like he said, is the initial conflict, the initial meeting of two aircraft is typically neutral, and they typically just fire at each other, get around, and then start dogfighting. And when I thought of that, I went, yeah, you're right. So in my sights and out of the sun are probably the best to start the battle, and then depending upon where you end up after that first little fur ball, then you can go. So my basic goal is to clean up that. I'm working a lot on the keyword sheet. There were an awful lot of, I find, not just in Stuka, or Zero and all of them, but a lot of games, I find that there's keywords that show up on targets or on aircraft or on whatever, and they're not explained. So I worked real hard on getting that keyword sheet so that if there's a keyword in the game, it should be on that sheet. So just those kind of things. Basically, now that this is my third game, it's basically cleanup. Basically, get everything that I missed in Zero and thought of in Stuka, but for some reason didn't do it right. Now it's all got to get straight, because now I know this is what I've got to do. So that's really what I'm doing with the player aids.
Okay. Any new like little tokens or anything like you had in Stuka? You had the fuel barrels and supplies.
They're not much different as far as those. The physical pieces are going to be drop tanks, and still cubes for supplies and stuff like that. But the drop tanks are going to be silver and dark gray. We're hoping. Sometimes the Chinese go, "Oh, silver, no," but we are, planning on them being silver for the ones and dark gray for the 10s. But we've got that. But new counters, new target counters. And one of the very cool things with Mustang is, well, I think it's cool, but it's called friendly fire. Mm-hmm. Friendly fire was involved in the earlier games. But what it was is, if you were attacking like a strafing run or doing whatever, and you missed, right, you took a stress or you did something like that. Well, in my case, friendly fire is really friendly fire. If you're in an area and there's an enemy aircraft in the area, you have a chance of getting hit by your own anti-aircraft that's firing at the enemy. So like in the other games, Stuka Leader and all that kind of stuff, if you were intercepting enemy bombers, there was none of your ground, you had no ground weapons to use or anything like that. Well, now when the enemy bombers are coming, there will be American anti-aircraft guns on the map board. And when you and the enemy meet in the center, you have to, hopefully you don't get hit. Hopefully they will hit the enemy. So it's a really cool idea that I think adds, it's just a little twist. I mean, it's nothing dramatic or anything like that, but you'll like nothing better that, you're in the battle with a legendary enemy or whatever, and his own anti-aircraft knocks him out. You're going to be really happy about that.
Yeah.
That's just one of the little kinks that I added to this game. So there'll be new counters for that.
Yeah, I still like your bogey, how you don't know what airplane you're going to fight until you actually get to it. So that was always a neat thing that you had introduced. And then also your minor hit markers and major hit markers. I like those too. Those are neat, and the different things, can happen to you.
Correct. And it's simple. It's not, you don't have to have a notebook or a graph paper out there to figure out what's going on with the damage or anything like that. It's real super simple. You know what I mean? They shot your favorite scarf, so now you're tipped, that kind of stuff. But I mean, everything that I do, and I think I've mentioned this to you before, if there's going to be a complication, in other words, adding minor hit, major hit, if there's going to be a complication to the game, it has to add at least twice that value in playability and fun. And I really think both of those systems that you mentioned do that. They're, again, super simple. Instead of pulling out a bandit and laying it there, now you pull out a bogey and you lay it there, and you have no idea what it is. And same as the minor hit, major hit. You shake where you used to think, well, okay, now I'm damaged, so it's automatic. Well, no, you've got to pull a counter, and you can be anywhere from -1 stress all the way up to KIA. I mean, so you don't know what's happening until you pull that counter. And I think that just adds so much more excitement and fun.
Yeah.
And the randomness of war.
Yeah, and it's nice, because it adds more to the strategy. You don't have to, if you know what bandit is in front of you, you know how to plan for it. But if you don't know, then it's, like you said, the randomness, it can be anything. It could be a legendary bandit, or it could be a newbie bandit, so you don't know.
Correct.
So you still have to send out your forces accordingly,
Right. And you don't know what they're flying.
Right.
It could be an ME-109, or it could be an ME-262. You don't know. And actually the idea, like you said, you don't know what's going on. The idea for those came from Glenn Saunders. We were talking, and he said that, he was going through a campaign of Zero Leader. And he said, yeah, I know that there's this legendary bandit sitting off on the side here, so I'm not going to have my good guy get involved. So he's there to get that legendary. And I went, well, that's wrong. I don't want that happening. So that's what he actually was the catalyst for me creating Bogey No Bogey. So I hope he's happy.
Thank you. All right. So what's your next project after this?
Nap? I don't know. I've got there's some stuff that has to be cleared up before I go into another one. If I'm being honest, there's another, I've got a couple other games on the horizon. I've got a couple ideas as far as additional leader games, that kind of stuff. But I've also got ideas for, different games that I may or may not pursue. And, the whole idea is you have to be very confident, okay, that everything is going to go through. Not that you put through all of this work and everything else, and then it never gets printed, or it never does that, or whatever. So I'm going to be, calling a timeout after this game. Don't worry, people who are listening and are going, oh God, Spitfire Leader is not going to happen. It's still there, and I'm still got it on the back burner, still working on it and stuff. But those ideas are ideas that are, I'm going to need to get some stuff clarified here and there, to make stuff work. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Is there something that you want to put into a game that you haven't been able to yet?
I used to say separating pilots from airplanes, but now I've done that. So
what was that?
There are separating the pilots from the airplanes.
Oh, okay.
Like in Zero and Stuka, all the previous games other than Thunderbolt and Apache Leader. Thunderbolt and Apache Leader actually kind of split some of the pilots, but those pilots were assigned to a particular aircraft, and that was it. But they didn't lean themselves to long-term campaigns like a World War II one does that starts at the start of the war and goes through the war. And that was the problem with Zero Leader. If your favorite pilot was flying an AM620, well, he shouldn't have existed in 1945. He shouldn't be flying that airplane. Now he should be flying a George or something like that. And the same with Stuka. And now at least in Mustang, you start your pilot in 42, and if you've got the Eagle Tuskegee Airman expansion, you can start your pilot in 1940. Then you're flying, in 40, you're flying a Spitfire Mark 1 or 2 or a Hurricane. And if you survive, then in 42, you maybe can move to a P-38 Lightning, and then move all the way up to a P-51D, by the end of the war. So it's cool that you can actually do that. That's the main reason why I wanted to separate the pilots from the airplanes. And got a lot of blowback on it. People were, Dan from Dan Verson and Kevin from DVG, they were both not on board with it. They both didn't really grasp the whole concept and thought I was making it a lot more difficult for the 98% of the people to make it easier for the 2% of the people to do what they wanted to do. And I didn't agree with them. And based on some polls that I ran on Facebook and everything else, most people agreed with me that this was a great idea. And even if you don't do it, it's a lot of fun because trying to make the right pilot with the right airplane is again another challenge to the game that adds a little complexity, but quite a bit more fun thanks to doing it, because now your pilot can bail out, and there's different things that they can do. So it's a positive.
Well, it makes it more fun, to mix and match.
Yes.
Because you're, with different aircraft, you have different abilities, so
Correct.
you can say, hey, I've got this skilled pilot. I want to see what he can do in this airplane, and maybe he becomes a double ace or something, whereas in the previous airplane, he couldn't achieve that, because of his maneuverability or whatever.
Right. And even though, like in the old games, sure, the campaigns were in historical order, but you really couldn't have that same pilot going through them. Now, because I've separated them, it actually allowed 3 campaigns. The fighter squadron campaign, that was a stretch goal that got funded. It's just fighter planes. So you put your whole squadron together as fighter planes flying Spitfire and P-38s in 1942, and then after every 4 missions or 4 days, so you could conceivably run 8 missions, but after every 4 missions, now it's 1943, so 4 more missions, now it's 1944, 4 more missions, now it's 1945. You have to upgrade your aircraft because you're not going to be flying a P-38L or J from 1942. You're not going to fly that 1945. So now you have to upgrade your airplanes in between each of these missions and do all that kind of stuff. And your enemy gets harder, better airplanes and doing this kind of stuff. So that made separating the two made that possible. I tried it in Stuka with the Grand campaigns, but it's very, very difficult when you've got a guy driving he's flying a Stuka. He's not going to be flying that in 1945. I'm sorry. It just, they weren't there. And so it was difficult to do that in Stuka, but in Mustang, it's perfect. It flows right along.
Any changes to the player record sheet?
Yeah, the log sheet is definitely going to be cleaned up. It is going to we're doing spaces so that you get a cumulative score as you're going through your campaign. You don't have to keep it in your head, or you don't have to measure, you don't have to count all of these kind of stuff. So you'll have a cumulative victory point thing. We're making it a little narrower so the boxes aren't quite as big, which is fine, except for like me, I always write when I kill something, I write what I killed. That's going to be a little more difficult because the boxes are going to be a little bit smaller, but this way we can get hopefully 16 missions on one page on one side. We're also trying to narrow them a little bit so we can get more than I think there's only 12 pilots on there, so we can get more than 12 pilots. So if you get a bonus pilot from a target or something like that, we've got a space for them. So that's one of the upcoming things that Vlad and I are going to work on to make sure that we do it the way we want it, but that it's still legible and everything else. That's all got to be important. You know, we couldn't just cram everything in, but then it would just be a mud ball that nobody would want to use. So we want to be able to get all this information in there. And the good news is, with the present design of it, there's a lot of white space. There's a lot of areas that we can change or move around that will create more space. So we're definitely working on that.
Yeah, I know that with it seems like with every series that comes out that there's always a player created record sheet, you know, for you know, because it's, do you guys go back and look at people's creations and get ideas, you know, and say, hey, people are, you know, they want this, or do you
Yeah.
ask for any feedback, you know?
I try to. I don't really ask for the feedback, because if I ask 100 people, I'll get 100 different opinions, and 99 of them will be upset because I won't use their opinion.
True.
But I do go back when when people make these fan-based things. I like to go back and look at them and go, okay, this is something somebody's looking at. Is it important enough? Because where you might be super concerned about XYZ, everybody else doesn't really care about XYZ, and it doesn't need to be on that particular sheet, but it does for you. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I can't make it that'll match everybody, but I try to get it so that it matches as many people as possible, so that one of the, like the cumulative total, that was one of the things that people asked for. Um, Many people asked for that, so that to have that down there, the cumulative victory point totals, and all these, you know, a couple of little things that they asked. You know, we don't have enough pilots. We don't have enough things for, you know, you're flying a 16 mission campaign and it only goes to 12 missions. Well, you know, now you got to flip it over and start all over again, because now your pilots are on the wrong side of the page and the whole shooting match. So we're trying to get that all squared away, and that's upcoming. That's as soon as we get these templates for the airplanes and the pilots done, then we're off to work on help sheets, and we got to get the TAC displays, got to have a couple of little changes around to it and all that type of thing. So yeah, I look back, I take people's feedback, and you know, again, Glenn Saunders, don't have the turn counter behind the stack of target and event cards, because then you can't see the turn counter because it's hiding back there. So he said that already way back, Stuka, you know, so that's something we're taking into mind, and now we got to change it around a little bit so that, you know, because he's right, because you got this big deck of cards in front of your marker, and invariably, if you're a klutz like me, you go to move the marker and there goes your whole deck of cards. I mean, that's nice because it gets them shuffled again, but it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So things like that, I definitely listen to them, and I look at them. Again, I can't use them all. You know, some of the ideas are fantastic in one situation, but they don't work so well in the other 99. So, but I try to put what people are saying, because that's good. That's what I want.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I have for you today. I
Oh, fun.
I really appreciate your time, taking time out. You know, I know you're busy, and coming on the channel today, talking about Mustang Leader, and I know I'm excited about it. I can't wait, you know, for everyone else to see this, and you know, it's going to be another successful game in your series.
Thank you very much. I hope so. I'm enjoying it very much. Ben and Vlad have been a blast to work with, and we're definitely getting this thing as good as we can get it, and hopefully everybody will like it.